Hey guys, Kelli Stewart here. I wanted to do this live stream, talk with you for a minute after I got done on the phone today with Omar Quasi in the CCA Prisons for Profit in Southern Nevada. I wanted to do a video. I told him I'd do a video and remind people of his story again to make sure he's not forgotten. Some of the thoughts that I have today were compelled from seeing political prisoners set free and the country rejoicing that those in other countries are being set free because they were wrongfully held. And while I celebrate that our president is working to get other prisoners across the world set free, I'm also grieved because his statement was that he wanted to make America great again. And I think one of the best ways that he can make America great is to show the world that we are not going to hold political prisoners here on U.S. soil wrongfully, and that we're going to give people their Bill of Rights and due process and fair trials. I think if you want to make America great again, before we go out to foreign soil and tell them how they're to run their country, I think we need to lead by example and show people mercy and compassion here in our own country. And so far, other than the sheriff that was pardoned and a few other people, so far I'm not seeing that, and that is very disappointing to me. So I told Omar I would go ahead and do an update with him. Omar is very frustrated. He's over 41 months now being held, and his conviction, if he went to trial and was convicted, he would be facing about 26 months in prison. So he was a felon because of a previous conflict that he had, and it ended up being a felony charge. And then when he was arrested, they said that there was a gun in the vehicle that he was driving in the glove box. So for those who like to say things about our Second Amendment right, if we all believe the Second Amendment cannot be infringed, then we would believe that Omar's charges are fake charges, and he should not be sitting in jail for a felon in possession, because a felon would be able to have a gun, number one. Number two, it wasn't even his weapon. Number three, it wasn't being used in any crime. He was simply pulled over on a traffic violation. And number three, he would have at least had his day in court by now, his day at trial, and he has not received that in 41 months. And so, again, while I rejoice that political prisoners are being set free across this country, across the world, I'm not going to truly celebrate until we start making America great again and setting political prisoners free. Some of these prisoners that were recently released were being held because they were accused of being spies, and they were first picked up on these weapons charges. And I just find it a little ironic when you think of Skylar Barbeau and all these other people who, Omar Quasi, who get picked up on weapons charges here in the U.S. And I think, well, we're fighting for these rights of these people, these U.S. citizens that are being taken hostage in other countries, while we're completely neglecting the modern day form of slavery that we have here in the United States. And it's really discouraging to me. You get a lot more praise when you set free U.S. citizens who are being held on foreign soil, just like you get a lot of praise when you send our troops to foreign soil to terrorize and attack and put our nose in places that it doesn't belong. But you don't get praised in your own country when you start to fix things within. And I think that Trump is avoiding something that's right in front of his face, and that's the political prisoners here on U.S. soil. So that is really disappointing to me. But I'm going to go ahead and be a voice for those people in the meantime. So Omar is facing 26 months in prison if he's convicted, but he's been held 41 months without a trial. He was denied by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and he is currently working his way through the Supreme Court. It's difficult, it's cumbersome, it's confusing, it's time consuming, and he isn't even sure if, when he takes it to the Supreme Court, if they're going to do anything about it, if they're going to do anything to help him in his case. So Omar is needing prayers. Omar is needing support. Omar told me that other than this one woman, I believe he said Mary from Utah, he has not received one visit in Pahrump, Nevada. This is somebody who has not only been recommended to me by Ryan Bundy, but he was a personal supporter of Cliven. He helped Todd write many of his documents. He helped Ryan Bundy through trial. This is a man who has been held for 41 months and is an absolute asset to our political prisoners that were in jail in Nevada. And he has not had one visit. So I'm going to ask that people in Nevada would go visit him. I know it's an hour and a half out from those who are in Las Vegas, but he is somebody who has greatly served the Bundy family, and he deserves the community's support. He also told me that that Todd does not regularly get visits, that it's here and there. And so I would ask those that are local if you can visit Todd Engel. Obviously check with his family. If you go on a Saturday, it's best because that's the last day of the week. So if a visit is still available, even if you use it, everything starts over on Sundays. So please get down there, contact their family members, see if you can get in there and visit with them. Jeff Winehouse could use visits in Missouri. We have Jake Ryan who could use some prison visits. We have people all over this country. We've got a lot of folks on the East Coast that hop in here, a lot of people from different big organizations with big numbers. Let's get in there and start practicing what we preach. It's not fun, it's not enjoyable, but it lifts the spirits of the prisoners. It shows the prison system that these people are not forgotten. And just like John has said in the hospital, when you have an advocate there speaking for you, your treatment really is better. So that's what I'll say for Omar. Omar needs prayers and encouragement. Todd is still working through getting the funds he needs to release that second, or to depose Wooten and get that next letter on record. I think it sounds like he's about $6,500 short of the attorney fees he needs for that. So let's help him. I know BJ Soper's been working on getting a weekend put together to help with that. So please go to his page and support him there if you can. Now what I want to do is, let's see. I'm going to want to read a letter that that I received from Schaefer Cox. It's weeks old, but I just got it today. And so I'm going to read it in just a minute to you because I just think it's profound, and Schaefer is a very deep individual, and he is suffering greatly. And this letter that he wrote me was while he was in solitary confinement. He was just recently released from solitary confinement. But first I want to see, let's see. I want to read something to you about the Oath Keepers, and I'm only going to kind of name them because we have all these different organizations out there that make statements like this. Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, police, and first responders who pledge to fulfill the oath all military and police take to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath, mandated by the Constitution itself, is the Constitution, not the politicians. And Oath Keepers declare that they will not obey unconstitutional orders, such as orders to disarm the American people, to conduct warrantless searches, or to detain Americans as enemy combatants in violation of their ancient right to a jury trial. Boy, when I read that, I think, well, surely there's some Oath Keepers that are going to show up for Omar because he has not had a jury trial in 41 months. And so surely there's going to be some Oath Keepers who are going to be meeting with Sheriff Worley in Pahrump, Nevada, to talk with her about the fact that she's not upholding her oath and that she's not protecting the people in her county that are being detained unlawfully in a federal prison. And I'm just sure there's some of them that are going to step up and lead the way. You know, it's funny because when I first started learning about all these different militia groups, I was really hopeful. And I was like, wow, all these people will go and actually go to the front lines for people and help them when they're, their constitutional rights are being violated. But the more I've gotten to know these different organizations, the more I see that promise has fallen short. And, they say, well, what do you think we should do? Well, I'm doing what I think I should do, and that is showing up to the prisons and being a voice for these individuals. But if there's all these groups out here, I mean, the Oath Keepers is a group of military, police, and first responders. I mean, what a better group to go and meet with the sheriff and camp out in front of these prisons where these people are being held unconstitutionally. and really raise some awareness. I mean, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. What do I matter, right? I'm just a silly pom-pom patriot. But what's so interesting is I don't even make a tenth of the boastful statements about being willing to go out and hold our elected officials accountable for the Constitution they swore an oath to. And yet I just very rarely see these situations where the militia is actually saying, okay, Schaefer Cox is held in an illegal prison. What oath keepers or 3%ers or militia are going to address that and are going to go meet with the local sheriffs and are going to go show up and be boots on the ground? Where are they? We need them. These are ex-military, police, and first responders. What a better group to show up and protest and to hold the elected officials accountable. So I hope they'll do that. So I'm going to read this letter from Schaefer, and then I hope if there's any Oath Keepers watching this or that see it, I hope they'll respond, because this is literally an SOS that Schaefer Cox sent out from solitary confinement. It compels me to act. It compels me to show up. It compels me to speak out. And I just really hope there's going to be some groups that are going to be willing to do the same. This letter was dated May 8th. Dear Kelli, I've been stuck in solitary confinement since Friday the 13th of April. It's bad. I don't have a write-up. I didn't get in trouble, and there's no reason to have me back in the hole. They won't give me access to any of my legal files, and they won't tell me what's going on. I'm literally and figuratively left sitting in the dark. And keep in mind, this is a man who has served 7 years of a 27-year sentence for stating that if we were put under martial law, that he would do anything and everything to defend his family. And he was sent to prison on conspiracy to murder people who don't even exist. There were no names, there was no targets. It was a figurative and hypothetical conversation. And he was targeted because he was somebody who was a Christian man who was making a difference and who was calling out sex trafficking in Alaska. 7 years he's been sitting in jail. 7 years, Oath Keepers. 7 years. I have yet to hear of one protest outside of any prison he sat in. The Muslim terrorists dusted up some drama that may have gotten me put back here in the first place. Okay, I think there's 21 or 31 people at this prison total. It's completely illegal terrorist camp. And there's like 5 that are white. So he's saying that a group of the Muslims caused some problems and he got thrown in the hole because of it. I can't figure out why I'm back in here, but I sure hate it. Please pray for me and pray for this situation. It's all about stopping me from telling my story and proving my innocence. Basically, it's obstruction of justice by the Department of Justice. Isn't that ironic? There are 2 main things I want to see if you can make sure are being taken care of. Get Judicial Watch to take over my Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. There was a lot of information that was kept from him about his case during his trial. So get my name on the Freedom Coalition's list of people Trump should pardon. Can I count on you? I've sent multiple letters asking Judicial Watch to be contacted about my Freedom of Information Act suit. I know one of those letters was not let out, but I don't know if the others made it. Can you please confirm? Without going into great detail, I basically already won the Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. But I need somebody like Judicial Watch to finish up the last 10%. Here's the thing, the losing party has to pay the winning party's attorney fees. So if Judicial Watch will step up and finish the last 10%, they can bill their hours to the federal government and they will be paid for their work. Judicial Watch just needs to be convinced by you and by others that my case is a case of political and public interest. That should be easy. I wrote about this extensively in the other letters that I sent out. Hopefully they have made it. Again, this is a letter from Schaefer Cox from solitary confinement. 7 years in prison so far. No criminal record previously, never harmed a hair on anybody's head. The Freedom of Information Act case is 317 CV 611 U.S. District Court, Southern District of Illinois, at East St. Louis. It is on Pacer. It will reveal not only that I'm innocent, but it will expose all the corruption that put me in here, who ordered it, and why. But I do need Judicial Watch's help to help me finish what I started. I just pray that they'll say yes. Even if they need me to pay money up front, fine. Now, about this list of political prisoners the Freedom Coalition is asking Trump to pardon. I don't know why I'm not on the list. They said the founding members are Sheriff Mack, Larry Pratt, Judge Andrew Napolitano, Ted Nugent, Tom Woods, Larry Clayman of Freedom Watch, and John Whitehead of the Rutherford Institute. He goes on to state that some of them are already supporters. He doesn't know about some of the others. He says, I'm just assuming that they don't know my full story. Anyway, I'd really like to be included in their calls for Trump to pardon the deep state's political prisoners. I'm in prison for a hypothetical crime in an imaginary future. His informants completely set him up and asked him, in the future, what would you do if these things happen? Because he was running for state office in Alaska and he was exposing very deep corruption. Also, on the National Day of Prayer, Trump created a liaison office for American Christians and churches. He said he wants evangelicals to give him a report and recommendation on how to end U.S. government's persecution of Christians, meaningful prison reforms, and how churches can help with opiate problems. I fit right into the first two. Maybe you could get my story to Trump through a posse of pastors. You'd have to take the initiative or assign the job to somebody who would, because these creeps have me locked away in a deep, dark dungeon, and they keep blocking me at every turn. Kelli, I am smart. I am hardworking, capable, a responsible man. But I've been reduced to being as helpless as a little baby. It is torture. Please help me. I now know how Joseph must have felt in Pharaoh's jail when he asked the guy to plead for his release, and he forgot. The guy got out of prison, went back to his old life, and forgot about Joseph. He just left him. Sad. Some good news. The Supreme Court just struck down the overly broad statutory definition of any crime of violence. Under the old definition, any crime which normally would create a substantial risk of physical harm to another was a crime of violence. So, speeding was a crime of violence if it was your third time going over 100 miles an hour. Crazy. But now, it's only a crime of violence if you did something violent, which means for me, I am now legally classified as a nonviolent first-time offender. Thought crimes. Remember, guys, thought crimes. His case is so much bigger than you probably realize. So much more important to this country and the freedoms that we sit here and claim exist that do not exist, because his is literally a thought crime, and it's a thought crime that any militias or Oath Keepers openly say, this is what we will do if they declare open war on Americans. And this is why Schaefer Cox is in prison. Many people are in prison not because of the things that they say, but because of who they are. That's why they held Clive and Bundy for 2 years without bail, but rapists and murderers get out. They don't care about the supposed crime. They care about the effect, the ripple effect that person is having on the deep state control and power. What this means for me is that I'm now legally classified as a non-violent first-time offender, and it automatically reduced my offense level by 4 points on the federal sentencing guidelines. So that is a cut and dry reason to give me a little bit nicer sentence than 27 years as a first-time non-violent offender. 27 years, you guys, life ripped away from him. It's some good luck that I got my sentence vacated on appeal, and then a month later the Supreme Court changed the definition of violent crimes just in time to help me. Let's hope these few drops of good luck turn into a spring rain shower of good luck. I got a letter from today of somebody who said John Lamb was hit by a truck. What is up with that? He goes on to share his concern for John. He's looking for an attorney within the Patriot community who is not looking to rip him off. Now would be a good time for one of those guys to step up and give me a call. The longer I'm stuck in the hole, the more I need somebody to help me, like a lawyer. Can you have somebody call me? Everyone out there thinks I just went dark. Since April 13th with my communication, nobody knows what's going on. They're sending me letters saying they're worried about me. It's as if my letters are never getting there. It took me over a month, almost a month, to get his letter. If you get this, please let the whole world know I'm still alive, but in desperate need of the help that I've outlined. I was not allowed to take anything with me to solitary. It was 2.5 weeks before they would sell me anything off commissary. Now I've been allowed to buy soap. Imagine that, you guys. Buy soap. These people are held in prisons that are financially profiting, turning a profit. And the inmates are not even granted soap. They're not even granted soap to wash their bodies. They have to get that off commissary at ridiculous inflated prices. This is called modern day slavery. And every time we turn our eye from it, we're condoning it. And we're saying, I am okay with this happening on U.S. soil. I don't want it happening in North Korea, but I'm okay with it happening here in the United States of America. I was able to buy soap, stamps, batteries for my radio, writing paper, and peanuts. These little things really help to ward off the madness. I'm very grateful for the people who have sent money orders to the BOP lockbox to go on my account. Each week when I buy something, batteries, peanuts, listen to the world news on my radio, my receipt shows how much I spent and how much I have left. Yesterday when I saw the receipt, it showed that the exact amount I spent was the amount people had sent me. What I used had been fully replenished. It was like 5 loaves and 2 fish running out for a crowd of 5,000. It was like God telling me to fear not, because he would never forget me, and he would remind people to remember me in the exact amount of my need, just to remind me also that it's him. For 7 years, my fate has been hanging in the balance, unknown and uncertain. I don't know if I'll get out in a few months or in the full 27 years or never. I don't know if any attorneys will fight for me or if they'll sell me down the river. I don't know if I'll be allowed to show the proof of my innocence or if the CMU will block me. I don't know if I'll ever see my kids before they're grown. He has young children at home still. I don't know if I'll ever get out of solitary confinement. It's agony beyond what any human mind can take. Then God, my heart grasps for certainty in any form, but none can be found. And then God moves in my spirit as if to say, I have promised to never leave you nor forsake you. And that is certainly what you need. When I look at my circumstances, it's far from hopeless. I've got so much going for me to get me out of prison and hopefully being fully exonerated. But my own hands are tied, my mouth is gagged, and it's like there are dry sticks laying all over the woods, but I can't gather them together and build the campfire I need to save my life, even though I'm freezing cold and all I need is to sit by that glow of the fire. If I'm not going to freeze, God is going to have to send me someone else to build my campfire. And I'm going to have to be I'm going to have to be a humble, grateful recipient of that rescue. Love truly is more powerful than corruption. We see this when people are moved by love for humanity, love for justice, and love for our country to save the innocent from the cage. God has seen fit to put my life in your hands. I trust him and I trust you. Please write me back right away so that I know that you got this. I feel like I'm stranded on a deserted island, stuffing messages into glass bottles and tossing them into the sea. The number one top priority right now is to get Judicial Watch to some other, is to get Judicial Watch or some other Freedom of Information Act attorney to take over my Freedom of Information Act lawsuit 317 CV 611. It's a guaranteed win. It is guaranteed money in the end for them. But I will still pay up front if needed. SOS, please help. Schaefer Cox. SOS. We have an American citizen sending out an SOS, and my question to the American people is, who will respond to the call? Who will respond to the need? I don't know how to fix overall the problems in this country. I know voting is not going to work. I know we're not in this mess because we just accidentally let go and voted the wrong person in one time. I know that there is a deep state running this country. I know that there's a satanic presence wanting to take away the rights and the freedoms of this country, and that has been in place and happening for over 100 years. I know the Second Amendment right is gone. It is only allowed for hunting at this point in the United States. They don't tell you that, but as soon as you use it for anything else, ask Eric Parker. It'll get you 2 years in jail for simply brandishing a weapon in the presence of a federal officer. They can shoot us in the head. They can kick us in the head. They can take our children from us. If we don't pay our taxes, they show up and put a gun to our head or haul us off to jail. Can't sell raw milk. Can't have a dog that's not registered, a gun that's not registered. Can't get married without the state's permission. Heck, you can't even be legally dead without the state's permission. Without your little death certificate, you're not even truly dead in the world's eyes. We have come so far from what our founders fought and died for. We have veterans killing themselves at 22 a day. When are we going to stop praising them for going and start telling them, don't go? You're being used. Stay here. Defend your neighbor. Help the neighbors in need here. It's not the foreign wars that we need to worry about. It's not ISIS that's hiding under our beds. They're not the ones taking our children. They're not the ones dragging us into the courts. They're not the one taking away water rights. They're not the ones that are out there finding ranchers and locking them up in prison. They're not. Are they dangerous? Yeah. Do I want to be run by ISIS? No. But I'm also not going to keep looking for them under my bed when they're not the monster that we're truly fighting. Ask Omar when he said over and over today, Kelli, America is gone. 41 months I've been in here without a trial. 41 months. 41 months, and you fly your flag the right direction still, and you have somebody that you know has been sitting for 41 months without a trial, who would only get 26 months if convicted. And you don't think we're a nation in distress? The only ones in distress are the ones willing to call out the tyrants. So you have a choice. You can be in distress or you can just live as a slave. As soon as you call them out, you're going to be in distress because they're going to lock you up. But if you ignore the problem, you're just going to be their slave, fueling, financially boosting their system to lock all the other people away. So we have a choice of which road we're going to walk down. Do land rights matter? Absolutely. Do property rights matter? Absolutely. But do they exist? By our laws that we have? No, you have no property rights. You can defend your property, but legally you don't have any property rights left in this country, and you don't have any Second Amendment rights. You don't even have a First Amendment right anymore in this country. Unless you're not creating a wave or bringing change, and then they'll let you do whatever. You can kill people. You can rape people, and they'll overlook it if you're not creating any waves for the deep state. So it's illegal to murder. It's on the books as legal to have a First Amendment right. But which of the two gets you locked away for 2 years quicker? Using your First Amendment right. Defending yourself against tyrants. If you defend yourself against your neighbor, you're probably going to end up going to jail too in the end because there is no Second Amendment right. But they're going to overlook crimes on a whole different level if it's committed against your neighbor versus against the deep state. All that evil needs to prevail is for good man to do nothing. So I have committed to do a couple of things for Schaefer, and that's work on getting Judicial Watch to take this case, making sure that that the whatever he called it, the coalition. Now I can't even find it. The Freedom Coalition lists his name as a political prisoner. If he's not a political prisoner, then I don't know what a political prisoner is. So those are two things that I'm going to be working on, is getting the Freedom of Information Act, a lawyer, whether that's through Judicial Watch or a private attorney that will take it and help him. And then also getting his name on the Freedom Coalition list. Can you help me with that? That means maybe sending them an email, maybe linking the freeschaefer.com website and sending them in some information so that before we start really pushing harder, they're already kind of getting an idea of who he is and what his situation has been. And then also, could you send some messages to the Freedom Coalition and make sure that Schaefer Cox is listed as a political prisoner and petitioning Trump for a presidential pardon for him? And then for the prisoners in Nevada, could you guys go visit Omar and Todd and anybody else you have time to visit? For Jeff Winehouse, can you be in prayer because the governor just stepped down? He was caught in some corruption, and he ended up stepping down. And I don't know if it's too late or not for him to pardon Jeff. I don't know if he's officially already hung up his hat or not. But if it's not complete yet, will you pray that he'll pardon Jeff Winehouse? Jeff Winehouse was shot 4 times by a cop and then charged with attempted murder. A cop he was going to collect his belongings from. A cop that had it all, that it was all recorded what the cop did on his wristwatch, on Jeff's wristwatch. He was singing praise songs the whole way there to meet these officers to get his belongings back. And when he stepped out of the car, within 1 minute, they had shot him. And he was nearly dead. 2 times he was shot in the head. 2 times he was shot in the head, twice in the chest. And then he was charged with attempted murder and had a complete kangaroo court trial. How many more Jeff Winehouses are out there? How many more cases do you hear of people that are being held on attempted murder or were convicted of attempted murder and you go, ooh, that's bad. I don't want those people in my neighborhood. Yeah, just like Clive and Bundy conspired to assault a federal officer? Really? How long are we going to keep looking at the shackles of criminal records that our government is putting around Americans' ankles to deter others from supporting them? How long are we going to believe the lies that the tyrants tell us? Let's get to know these people on a different level and understand really what happened. Jeff was running for first sheriff and then coroner. He was exposing the crimes in Missouri before they locked him away. Sound familiar? Is it going to be Ryan Bundy next? Ryan Bundy's running for governor. He's not going to quit. What if he runs for sheriff next? Eventually, they're going to set him up too. You guys can start speaking up now, or you can wait till it's your turn. But we've got Shauna running for office. We've got Roger Roots running for office. We've got Ryan Bundy. We've got people all over the country now that are running for office. And if we look back on the past, what happens to them when they're able to make a difference, especially like those who went to the refuge have been able to make a difference, especially those who won their case? Those are a threat to the tyrants. We need to support them now. And we also need to understand that criminal records are a joke. It's a joke. If Ryan Bundy had been convicted, he would have spent life in prison. He would have been a felon. They would have seen that he attempted to use threats and force and violence on a federal officer. Do you guys know that I would let that man babysit my children and I would let him and his family come stay in my home whenever they need? We got to look past the criminal records. Shauna Cox would have been a felon. Shauna Cox would have been a criminal. And if she fled, you know what they would have said? It would have been a manhunt. A manhunt for a convict who escaped. You guys, we got to get past all these trigger things that we listen to and we're like, convict, escaped convict. Oh my gosh, that's bad. Whoa. There is no due process in this country anymore. So I'd like to actually see what the jury didn't see first before I'm going to judge that person as a convict. Because there's people all over this country getting away with murder who are not convicts. So I'm going to look beyond a stupid little write-up that a tyrant, a little label that a tyrant assigned to to good people before I judge them and determine whether or not there's somebody that I should be in fear to be around. Omar needs out of jail. To all the Oath Keepers, to all the militia, to all the 3%ers, we can meet with sheriffs. We can do call campaigns. We can show up and camp peaceably on private property. 41 months that man has waited for a trial and still has no date in sight. How much more is America going to take? You know how we can avoid a bloody revolution? We can show up now and peaceably protest before it gets to that point, when our voices can still be heard. Before people go absolutely ballistic and crazy because they're so sick and tired of being regulated and taxed into oblivion that they show up and they have nothing left to lose. We still have things to lose right now, guys. We still have our possessions. We still have our homes. We still have our families. This is the time to speak out because we're typically going to be a lot more level-headed at this point in the game. Don't wait until it's complete chaos in this country to let your voice be heard. I mean, look what's happening to Tommy over in the UK. Thousands are showing up. They shot Lavoie 3 times in the back. And people weren't showing up. Not in the thousands. They held ranchers for 2 years without bail. They shot Jeff Winehouse in the face and then arrested him. Waco, Ruby Ridge. These are not isolated incidences. We have prisoners and people being killed all over this country by our government, and we're overlooking it because it's difficult to acknowledge that we have a problem in this country. We don't know what to do about it, so we back off in fear. But what if we face the tyrants? What if we show up and we expose their corruption and we show up in numbers? We don't want harm to come to anybody. But where do you think this is going to end if people let this just continue going the way it is? We know where it's going to go. Look at history. I don't want that. I don't want that for my family. When I'm eventually put away, is somebody going to speak for me? Or like Schaefer says, is it going to be like the Pharaoh's men who turned and forgot as soon as they got released? As long as we have political prisoners in this country, we cannot wave our flag the right side up. We are a nation in distress. Out of respect for what our founders fought and bled and died for, every flag should be upside down, exposing the corruption that is going on. We have human warehouses in America, financially profiting off of the backs of people like Cliven Bundy and Todd Engel and Michael Emery and Omar. Turn your flag upside down out of respect for it. Don't disrespect our founding fathers. They went to war over tea tax, over ammunition confiscation, over taxing their possessions. They went to war. Let's not let it get to that point. Let's stand up now while we still can, and let's say no more. Remember the Force Farm. Look up Save the Force Farm. Robert Force is a veteran who thought that he was out fighting for his freedoms, only to come back in America and find out that his government could take everything from him and there's not anything he can do about it. That's how America treats its veterans. See, I love them enough to tell them in the first place, don't go. Don't go. You go because you want to be tough and you think you're going to be protecting our freedoms, but you're going to be used. And then when you get home, you're going to be completely disposed. And then you're going to be angry that people like me won't worship you for fighting for my freedom. If you really fought for my freedom, I could sell raw milk off my property without fear of going to jail. You fought, but you didn't fight for my freedom. If you did, I'd have freedom right now. We have a big enough military that if our military was fighting for my freedom, I would have freedom right now. We have no shortage of military. So if tens of thousands of people are out fighting for my freedom, and I have zero property rights, and I have zero rights to travel, and I have zero rights to bail, and I have zero rights to due process, then you didn't fight for my freedom, you just fought. Choose your battles wisely, guys. And let's start right here by making America great again and cleaning up the mess we have in our own backyard. God bless you guys.